Well, Clint's girlfriend always has fresh breath, and that's the way he likes it, and that's why he's still not here right now. Welcome back, beautiful and amazing human beings. My name's Luke Radowski here of the best politicalshow.com, and we will be going live for the next 2 hours discussing all the latest and crazy news developing right now, as of course there never is a shortage of things to talk about, as right now there is a major hurricane coming to Florida, to the studio that we are reporting from, as it is getting more political by the day. Elon Musk is also calling out Bill Gates with a major interview with Tucker Carlson. All this while Donald Trump just took the lead up to 8.6% in the predicted market. And that's exactly what we are going to be discussing for the next 2 hours. So please share this broadcast with your friends and family members. It means a lot to us, and it's one of the reasons why I, as an independent media organization, still exist for over 20 plus years, predominantly because of your direct support. YouTube doesn't get these videos out. You do, and we definitely appreciate that. We show our appreciation by, of course, also allowing you guys to call in to our show, and members of LukeUnfiltered.com get the ability to call in and be a part of the broadcast, be a part of the show. That could be you, just by simply signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com. First-time callers also get free supplements from wearechange.shop. We're going to be doing our best to take super chats, as of course we will be prioritizing the Streamlabs chat. As of course joining us for today's conversation is the one and only General Flynn. Mr. Flynn, thank you so much for joining us. For some of the people who might not know who you are, how would you introduce yourself? And thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Wow, I am.
If you can't just pick up the mic a little bit.
Thanks very much for having me. It's wonderful to be here in studio on an amazing day. It's also October 7th, right?
Oh, yes.
It's also the anniversary of October 7th, so I think we need to raise that. We're going to be here for a couple hours talking about everything, and sort of everything is on the table. I'm here with my nephew, Bobby. Bobby's terrific. He helps me out in a lot of ways. How I would introduce myself, I'm probably definitely am one of the most Googled names in the world. I was for 2 years in a row in the 2017-2018 timeframe. I have been incredibly persecuted by the Department of Just Us. I actually spent almost 3.5 decades, almost 34 years in the United States Army. Served, primarily at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, in 82nd Airborne Division and Special Operations Forces. I spent 5 years, not 5 tours, but 5 years in direct combat operations overseas in places like Central America, the Caribbean, of course, East Africa, the Middle East, and Central Asia. I loved every minute of it. I was a Democrat. When I ran with Trump in the campaign of 2016, where we were able to overcome a lot of adversity, and probably a very formidable candidate in I won't say her name because it's probably one of the band names. Who knows? But and we won. I do think that 2020 still, we can talk about 2020 and the election, but I think that's looking back. But we have to look back in order to go forward here, because we're coming into about, less than 30 days now for the most historically consequential election in U.S. history. If we don't get this one right, then we will rapidly become the United Socialist States of America, and we will basically be a government called America with socialist characteristics. And that is not, that is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, I wrote an article about 2 weeks ago on what if Kamala wins, and in it I laid out 10 things that she will do, and they are all things that she has said she will do. Yeah,
let's definitely pull those up, because I think that's important to think about when it comes to the larger kind of circumstances of everything that we're facing here. I love that you said the Department of Just Us.
Yeah, Just
Very
Us.
fitting.
I actually have a license that's like that on one of my cars.
Absolutely. It looks like you also have a trailer for a movie. We're going to be playing that at the
wonderful.
end as well.
Yeah, we have a great movie.
We'll get into all of that. I remember following your work very closely, and I remember commending you when you were a part part of the Obama administration, and when you whistleblowed on the very serious things that were happening inside of Syria. And I remember giving you tremendous amounts of props for doing that, because you exposed what a lot of people on the ground were exposing, but you being a part of that Obama administration, saying it from within, actually legitimized it, and it was a major issue. So I want to thank you so much for those heroic actions, and I think this is why the kind of intelligentsia deep state went after you as much as they did when you were a part of Trump's administration. But we'll get into all of that. We're still doing introductions. Bobby, if you want to introduce yourself, tell people your social media, you're more than welcome to as well. Thank you so much for joining us. Clint's busy with all of his girlfriends, so he couldn't be here. So we thank you for taking his spot.
So I'm actually I'm Bobby Lane. Actually, I'm not Flynn, but I'm related to Flynn.
We're cousins.
But we're so he's my mother's brother-in-law.
Awesome.
So I mean we've been hitting each other up a lot more now. We've been we did this 2-month tour
Of the Flynn of the movie.
Yeah,
it was great.
The documentary tour in.
Bobby got a lot of grief.
If
he
you
got
can
an
just
awful
bring,
lot of
up
grief.
just bring up the microphone a little bit closer.
I have a bunch of special forces guys that had helped us out. They're retired all guys, and they treated them like they were
there were a
son.
lot of guys that were special forces. I'm not one of them, but there were a few other guys other than me that were in special forces. But yeah, it was an incredible journey. It was my first time actually traveling across country, and it was tiresome a couple times, but most of the time it was.
What time do we get up in the morning?
Oh, we get early in the morning.
Like what time?
Oh, the time like 6.
6.
Yeah,
Christ, you overslept.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was earlier than 6, but yeah.
That's when Clint usually goes to sleep. If you can't just bring up the mic a little bit closer, because
Like
it's
you're
very
gonna eat it,
directional.
Bobby.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
yes.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm trying to eat the microphone.
But thank you so much for joining us. Where can people find out more information about you?
Do you have social media?
Yeah. I go on Facebook. I go on Instagram.
What's your Instagram handle?
Just RT Lane.
RT Lane. At RT Lane.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Martha Bueno is here as well. Always great to have Martha here in studio as well. Our residential Cuban Latina, disenfranchised person of who doesn't like communists.
Who does not like communists, exactly. And I'm here to hear more about the Department of Just Us. Definitely not a fan of them. And you can find me at Bueno from Miami on X and IG.
Awesome. Steph.
Hi everyone, this is Steph of We Are Change, pushing the buttons. You can find me on X at StephWRC.
All right, let's just get into the news of what's happening right now, because I think the biggest story is, of course, the natural disasters that are happening inside of the United States. Some people say that they could be man-made disasters. We'll get into some of the theories of what's going on here. But after Hurricane Helen, now we have Hurricane Milton coming our way here to Florida, as experts now are expecting one of the worst storms ever from the Gulf of Mexico to hit Florida, as 6 million people already have gotten warnings. Congress members are telling people to evacuate immediately. Wind speeds are predicted to be as high as 175 miles an hour. And of course, this is something very severe, something that people are taking very seriously. We almost didn't do this podcast because we're in Florida as well. And there's still a lot of speculation to where exactly this hurricane will hit. But it's just one devastating storm after another devastating storm. And it looks like Florida is in some very serious troubles, to say the least. I don't know if you guys were kind of paying attention to what's going on here as well, but it looks like it's going to be a massive one, as even a lot of meteorologists are fighting back tears, describing the horror that's incoming here to Florida, as it looks like this is going to be a hell of a storm, to say the least.
So, I mean, a couple of things. Number one, I want people to not forget what has happened, because Milton is here now, but Helene just hit, 2 weeks ago, within the last couple of weeks, actually less than 2 weeks. And the devastation from Florida all the way up to North Carolina, and we have a whole bunch of people on the ground up in North Carolina. I think that Helene, we'll wait and see what the outcome of Milton is, but I believe that Helene will be rated as, if not the largest disaster natural disaster that's ever hit this country, it'll be right close to number 2. The biggest one that we had was back in early 1900s, and we lost like 10,000 people. This one, I think we're looking at, we're already north of 2,000. There are still enclaves up in the mountains of North Carolina that they haven't gotten to. We just called on the way down here today, one other friend that they're up there doing search and rescue operations. They found a child alive yesterday. So there's still people that are up there. These are strong people in the mountains of North Carolina. And there are places that we haven't gotten to because it's so washed out. So I think the total numbers are going to be much higher. The biggest problem, or one of the biggest challenges right now, is that the government, the U.S. government that we pay for, has yet to designate a person to be in charge of it. And that's, when we do comparisons, Katrina, you guys might remember, you might not, but Katrina happened. We had 75,000 military that were sent to Katrina immediately. Within 4 days, there was 75,000 military. Right now, we have maybe 1,500 to 2,000 military, so that doesn't cover hardly anything up in the North Carolina area. For the Florida folks that are listening to this podcast, the storm Milton is set right now. The track is set right now to hit slightly below Tampa Bay. So Tampa's the big target. But I was here for Ian, and while we were watching Ian, I remember Ian. We were told by the weather services, by NOAA, that it's heading to Tampa, and on the day that we were told, we got up that morning, we were thinking, okay, we're going to be okay where we were, which is south of Venice. We're on the west coast. And like around, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, that sucker just took a due east. And the eye literally came over the town I live in. And we had severe damage. We still have people from Ian, which was over 2 years ago, or 2 years ago now, that are still, their houses are still damaged. Their places are still destroyed, trailer parks, stuff like that. So don't take this lightly. What was stated about the winds right now, that they're tracking anywhere from 160 to 175. That's above Cat 5. I think what we're going to look at is probably a sizable storm. This thing is like 250 miles wide, and people need to take all the precautions and take everything seriously and do what you're asked to do. I do think, I'm not a huge fan of Ron DeSantis, to be honest with you, but because of some issues that I disagree with him on. But Ron DeSantis has really demonstrated incredible leadership, where I know in North Carolina, the governor of North Carolina is absent. The U.S. government is absent. And I heard a piece from FEMA, from the FEMA director, talking on whatever the show is there on MSLSD there in the morning. It was like she was blaming misinformation for what the results are. And that's total. Can I? It's like if I get Irish on you here.
No, please. Next hour you can get as Irish
bullshit.
as you'd like.
It's total bullshit, and there is nobody designated. So, and I don't know your audience. We have because I want to go back to Katrina, because what I did was I pulled the lessons learned from the government from that disaster. It was huge.
And it was a huge disaster, and the government made it that much worse. They literally went around disarming fellow Americans and called in martial law, and it was total bedlam and total chaos.
Yeah, so what I did was I pulled about 5 days ago. You can pull it off online. I pulled the lessons learned, the U.S. government lessons learned from Katrina, because it was a big deal. And what did we do? How did we respond? Because this Helene is going. The numbers that I have been told, and God, I pray that they're not at these numbers, but I'm told that we could go as many as 10,000 people from Helene. This is how bad this disaster is up in the mountains here and other places. And people need to know that the temperatures up in those mountains, which I'm very familiar with, they're dropping down into the mid-30s at nighttime. So if there's people up there with nothing, that means no place, no shelter, all that. So in Katrina, one of the principal things that they did, and some people can go Google him. His name was Honoré. He was a lieutenant general, like I retired. He retired as a lieutenant general. I know him. He was designated by the administration to be the JTF commander, the Joint Task Force commander, to take all resources that were being brought to bear, and basically one guy being put in charge. And that's where the buck stopped with him, with decision making, moving resources, getting people, help, flying helicopters, building, everything, food, shelter, everything, supplies, medical. So they designated him. Right now, there is not one person designated. And if there's one thing that just irritates me to no end as a military guy and as somebody who looks at organizations and structure, I'm like, wow, man, we are allowing people to really be in miserable conditions, possibly people that are still alive in some of these places, instead of being recovered, they could be rescued. And until we put somebody in charge, we got a lot of private organizations up there that are doing all kinds of great things. That's going to start happening in Florida, but I think what Ron DeSantis will do here in Florida for Milton is he'll put somebody in charge, and he's already starting to do that.
Yeah, say what you may about Governor Ron DeSantis. He definitely handles these situations a lot better off than a lot of the other governors that kind of just sit on their hands and allow utter chaos and
we also
bedlam
have
to
the
happen.
experience. Florida has gotten a lot of storms. I myself remember the year of Katrina. Most people don't remember. We also got Katrina. We got Rita and Wilma that same year. Hurricane Andrew in the 90s was a complete devastation to South Florida. All of Homestead was pretty much wiped away.
Yeah,
so
it was flattened. It was flattened. So that's a good one. So that particular one, because my brother...
And that's about the size of the one that we're expecting.
My brother actually was in the 82nd Airborne Division, which is a combat deployable unit. They were actually deployed to come down to Florida because of the devastation of that. And the 82nd Airborne Division, which is in Fort Bragg now, they I guess they now call it Fort Liberty for DEI purposes, but their 3-hour drive. So they deployed at that time for that, to take care of. I mean, they came down here with shovels, pickaxes, wheelbarrows, batons for security. I mean, our country is better than this when we have solid, strong leaders, and right now we're in a really tough spot. We're in a tough spot.
Yeah, Congresswoman Anna Paulina just went on Twitter and said, quote, "I am asking everyone to evacuate immediately. This is going to be a catastrophic hit." There's a clip here from this kind of meteorologist that I think is also worth listening to. We're going to play the clip here as well for everyone to understand the significance of everything that we're going through right now.
Incredible hurricane. It has dropped...
Pressure.
It has dropped 50 millibars in 10 hours. I apologize. This is just...
This is
horrific.
John Morales, right?
Maximum sustained winds are 160 miles per hour, and it is just gaining strength in the Gulf of Mexico, where you can imagine the winds. I mean, the seas are just so incredibly hot. Record hot, as you might imagine. You know what's driving that. I don't need to tell you. Global warming, climate change, leading to this and becoming an increasing threat.
There we go. The politicization
John
of
Morales,
this.
just for context, is a OG weatherman here in Miami. He predicted, he was, the meteorologist back when Andrew was a thing. So he's been around for a long time. Seeing him cry on air is kind of shocking, actually.
Yeah. No, this is definitely going to be a major one, as of course the evacuations are underway, and we specifically have videos like this coming from some of the major metropolitan areas on the west coast of Florida that are now evacuating and getting out of there, especially after just the latest hurricane hit that, of course, affected everyone, as there's some very serious questions about the federal government's response to all of this, as a lot of people are kind of saying, hey, why are we giving all this aid to Lebanon? Why are we giving all this foreign aid to all these foreign countries and not really kind of prioritizing our own American people that, of course, are being siphoned off through our tax dollars to give to foreign governments? And this kind of led to a very interesting kind of crescendo moment with the White House press secretary that just walked out of a press briefing after she was questioned about some of the funding, some of the money, and some of the things that the federal government is doing here. We're going to play that clip as well.
We have made sure that every state has gotten their storm requested emergency declaration.
She's full of it.
They requested it, and we made sure they received it. We've taken this very seriously. More than $200 million that we have provided to the impacted areas. But instead, people want to do disinformation, misinformation, which is dangerous. Because then when
How about the
folks on
reporting
ground
from the people
hear-
on the ground in North Carolina?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, I think people asking for help, asking the government to do more, holding them accountable for their lack of responsibility to this isn't disinformation. It's calling out the government for not doing its job that the American people expect it to do. And there's a larger question here whether a lot of this is kind of incompetence or whether it's malice. I think it's a combination of both, I think. But I think there is something to this larger theory that a lot of this is kind of being politicized, since a lot of the people that were hit were kind of right wing. Do you believe that there is something more sinister happening here, potentially, with the government saying, we don't really care about these people. They're a thorn in our side. We want them to go away. We're using the DOJ to go after them. Why should we help them? We don't want to help them because we don't like them anyway. Do you think that's the perspective of some of these individuals? Because we saw some, influencers on social media literally say those things and kind of brag, like, yes, we're happy that this hurricane hit these people because these are not our people. These are people that are on the right.
Yeah. So in North Carolina, there are 28 counties that were affected. Some of them are totally destroyed. Of those 28 counties, 26 of those counties voted for Trump in 2020. Okay. So I'm speculating. I can sit here and we can, Monday morning quarterback every day, all day long here about what's in their minds. But the response, I can tell you, the response by the United States government, the lack of answering phone calls, the lack of putting people on the ground, the lack of committing, serious capabilities that we have. And when somebody stands there and says, well, like Mayorkas, and says, well, we're out of money, or FEMA says we're out of money, we've spent all of our money on illegals, or the government spent all of its money overseas, is total and complete bullshit. I mean, the United States government has, the Speaker of the House. So let's just talk on both sides, right? Instead of just talking about the White House. The Speaker of the House has the full authority to move. There's what's called budget lines. So you have a budget line for X, you have a budget line for Y, and a budget line for Z. The Speaker of the House has the full authority to move money from one budget line over to another, or to create a new one in the case of a national emergency. The Speaker can do that. Doesn't have to go back to the president. Now, of course, a phone call to the president, but he's probably asleep because, let's see, it's past 4 o'clock. So Joe is asleep.
He's sundowned.
Kamala is trying to figure out, where the border is or where Europe is. Now I'm being a little bit mean, but I'm being very serious about the lack of the responsiveness of our government. So if we, and I'm doing this right now with people that I know, we have a group of people that are pushing tractor trailers with 10-inch generators, sleeping bags, hygiene products, food, water. I mean, all the kinds of supplies that you think you would need to, 10-inch. Our government has all that, and it's 3 hours away at a place called Fort Liberty now, Fort Bragg. And there's Seymour Johnson, which is an Air Force base there. We have a shitload of helicopters that they could bring to bear up in the mountains there to save people's lives. So if they give us some nonsense about, well, we've got to have these guys ready to deploy at a moment's notice to Ukraine or to the Middle East, I mean, I'm done. I'm done with these people, and we have got to get them out of the White House, because this is not just just incompetency, because there's a little bit of that. This is actually, there's an intentionality to the way that they act and the way that they operate. I mean, I wasn't kidding about the FEMA director on one of the major cable networks that said, she was blaming it on misinformation, and then they tried to twist it and say that there was foreign information that was influencing some of the things that the American people are getting. I mean, these people are nuts. They are absolute psychopaths, and they, the left, it's a culture of death. I mean, we are in a place right now, and this is when I get serious, when I start to get, my voice kind of goes down a little bit, because I get a little bit passionate about the things that are happening. But we are in a place right now, to your audience and anybody else that listens to this in the next couple of days or so, where if we don't get this right, we are going to lose all of our basic freedoms, okay? We are going to see the Constitution in the next couple of years completely change. And how do they do that? They do it like this, and these are now things that Kamala Harris has said. We basically increase the size of the Supreme Court. There is nothing in the Constitution that says the Supreme Court has to be 9 people. She's also said that she wants to see the District of Columbia and Island of Puerto Rico become states, and that's mainly to get 4 more senators, where they basically own the Senate, and take it writ large. And then there's about another dozen things that she has talked about, and you just kind of look at this and you go, man, this lady's a Marxist. I mean, she's got
Absolutely.
and the business about unburdened, right? This word unburdened. Karl Marx used that word all the time, wrote about it. So when we heard in the 2020 campaign, the bumper sticker by the left, that we are going to build back better, right? And I think you know this, Luke, because your discussions about globalism and globalists, I think, have touched on this a little bit. But the bumper sticker, build back better, what does it really mean? What it means is that we are going to destroy everything and then build it back better in our image. That's what these people want. And these people are currently occupying the White House. Our White House has been infiltrated by a whole bunch of people like China and this globalist crowd. And I know we got a lot of time here to talk for the next couple hours or hour and a half or so about some of these issues, because people need to know before this election, there's going to be a couple of other things that are going to happen. And these are things that I'm not, making this up. We can lay these out. There's going to be a global economic shift. There's going to be another health crisis, and these emergencies are hitting parts of the country where, if we have mail-in ballots, early voting, same-day voting, whatever. I mean, you're touching on places, and for the political people and the oligarchs, the socialists, the globalists that want to hold on to power in the United States of America, that's what it's about. You kind of say, why? Why do these people want to do this? Why do they want to destroy this country? Because they want more power. It's not about money. If you got power, you're going to get the wealth. These people are super wealthy. This is about power, and the whole thing about absolute power corrupts. So. And this is about total control of the United States of America. There was a decision made not many years ago about, and this is really, how did Trump fit into all this? Because you kind of go Trump, right? Well, when he won, when he beat a very formidable candidate in Hillary Clinton, I said the name, when he beat her in 2016, it was kind of a holy shit moment. Oh my God, we didn't achieve the plan that we had, which was 8 years of Obama, 8 years of Hillary, and the United States, as we know it would. You wouldn't be here.
Yep.
We wouldn't be having this conversation. So that was the plan, and it didn't work out. Donald Trump walked in the room, and then the country just didn't want the norm, right? And there was a little bit of fraud in that election as well, and we did know that post the election, because the Clinton administration the Clinton team came to the Trump team and said, hey, we want to do an audit in 3 states, and we did. And Trump came out on the higher end with more votes. So I'm taking people through all this because everybody needs to understand that this is a very, very big deal about taking total control of the United States of America. And all of these things that are happening, the war in the Middle East, the war in Eastern Europe, the domestic madness that we're going through with the illegal invasion, you throw in these very tragic storms, and we can talk about what government is capable of or not, but I mean, all these things matter, and people need to pay very close attention and then make a decision based on it for what's best for you.
Yep. I definitely want to get into some of the theories in a little bit, because I think that theories are worth having, because it's directly what the state media organizations are attacking today. We have this CNN article that reads, with misinformation swirling in Hurricane Helen's wake, officials urge residents to stop the conspiracy theory junk. Yes, you're hearing that correctly. Reuters also came out with another article. U.S. officials struggle to squash Hurricane Helen conspiracy theories. I responded to this earlier, being like, okay, you're a bureaucrat, you're in office, you're a politician, you're supposed to be representing me, I'm paying for your salary. And as people are struggling to survive, struggling to get resources, are literally dying because of the lack of government response and aid, the priority you have here is that people have wrong opinions on the internet? Are you kidding me? This is what we're focusing on? You should be on the ground helping people right now. And I think it's fair to say that there's been a lot of people people pointing the finger directly at the federal government and saying they're not helping at all. They're kind of standing in the way from people being helped. Now, yeah, there's a lot of different things going on. You could pinpoint certain elements, but I think it's important to theorize here. I think it's important to speculate here since the government lies so often. Originally, there was a statement that FEMA was running out of money because of all the illegal immigration funds that they kind of diverted away from their Federal Emergency Management Agency. And Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House spokesperson, said, no, that never happened. As a few years ago, she's literally announcing that money from FEMA is going towards helping illegal immigrants as well. So I think the theories are valid. I think the criticism is more important than ever, especially in what we're looking at, potentially thousands of Americans no longer being here with us because of this devastating hurricane that impacted Americans. Especially this conversation is important now more than ever with a second hurricane coming here our way as well. So I think it's important to bring up these things as much as we can. And I want more theories. We need to speculate more, in my opinion, not less, especially when we have a government that absolutely lies through its teeth about almost everything.
For example, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to make a comment on that video we watched of the Biden's press secretary. I want to see if we can do a Luke check. And she said 200 million was given. Is that accurate? Because I was seeing a lot of online commentators saying that there really wasn't that amount of funds. So
regardless, the government prints money. How exactly are they running out of something that they can just print?
Like, is that actually a lie?
200 million wouldn't be enough regardless. I mean, even if that was an accurate number, I don't think that's enough considering the fact that, as the general just said, there's probably 2,000 people who have lost their lives. There's probably thousands who are without power. We need a search and rescue. Yes, they're displaced. They need emergency services. Again, as Floridians, we know what a hurricane can do, and we are prepared for them. Imagine a place like North Carolina that is not, and they have mountains that you have
the temperatures and the
right.
weather.
I mean, it's just a completely different scenario.
I mean, those people are not. Think about this. I mean, it was a hurricane, which normally hits the coastline. It hit the mountains of North Carolina. Those people are not prepared like we are on the coast, right? Whether it's East Coast, Gulf Coast, or West Coast. I mean, we are prepared for these kinds of things. Florida gets them all the time. During the hurricane season, we get hit, 2-3 times
and even
really
still,
good.
It's devastating here in
it
Florida.
Is. Exactly. The insurance industry, they earn their living here in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
These people are not prepared. The government was ill prepared to do anything about it. And so far, and we're talking about like maybe 2,000 troops. I mean, I saw a report last night where, we've got the 101st Airborne Division. I think it was like a battalion task force, which is maybe 500-600 guys. That's in addition to what was already deployed, which is about 1,500. We have governors like Ron DeSantis sending National Guard resources from this state up there because the federal government, hasn't done anything about it. Every single item that could possibly be used right now in an emergency situation is available at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Every single item, from tonnage to food to medical supplies to the people to deliver them to the recovery assets, everything, every single thing. And
why aren't they being deployed?
Because this government, like I said, I mean, we're past 4:00 in the afternoon here, and when have we heard from our president? Have we heard from the vice president? Is there a spokesperson that's standing up there other than than what's her name that sits in that rattles her whatever off? There's nobody in North Carolina. Governor DeSantis has taken charge here. My guess is he's going to designate somebody. Maybe his adjutant general, the tag they call it, the 2-star here in Florida. I mean, there's a tag. There's a 2-star National Guard lead in North Carolina. Where's he at? Where's that person at? Nobody. To me, that's one of the principal things that happens that you must do when you have a disaster like that. You assess the situation quickly, and you put somebody in charge of it. So you have one belly button. You give him the resources. He or she the resources to be able to take care of all these different things. And let me tell you on climate change, okay? I'm going to just read it. You mind?
I don't mind at all because we heard that from the anchor there.
Yeah. And, 1933. I'll give you the patent number because I'm not going to rattle off all of them. 1933, U.S. patent number 192896563A. Electrical system and method for spraying chemtrails. 1933. I'll give you the patent number again if you
Our
want.
audience is very aware.
1934. U.S. patent number 1967075 Alpha. Airplane spray equipment. That's 1933, 1934. Now, I could go, I got a whole list of them here. And this is all publicly available. 1964. U.S. patent number 3126155A. Silver iodide. Cloud seeding generator. Main commercial ingredient. So what else are the ingredients? 1964, same year. U.S. patent number 3127. I'll stop here after a sec. 107 Alpha. Generation of ice nucleating crystals. I mean, so when we hear this, that whatever that article was that you had up there before about stop with the disinformation, then how about somebody getting out there and telling us the truth?
Yeah.
Okay? Tell us the truth. Tell us that we have this situation under control and that we are placing people in charge, we are deploying the resources, and our first priority, in fact, the most important thing for a president of the United States to do is to protect the safety and security of the American people, period.
Mic drop.
Yeah, absolutely. There's somebody that on the internet that has been talking about the technology the United States government has had in relation to the MH370, the airplane that went missing, that to this day we still don't know, Ashton Forbes on X. And he says that the United States government has incredible amount of technology that we'd be blown away. We'd be blown away.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah. MTG has a tweet about this that we're going to talk about in a little bit.
Let me read one more. Just I got to give it on the play. 2001 to jump from 1933 to 1964 to 2001, and I'll stop because this is 2024. Okay, so 2001, U.S. patent number 2003008529 Alpha 1, hurricane and tornado control device. Okay, so knock it off with the disinformation. I mean, the ability and the need, and a lot of this stuff is like it's done to hopefully to protect the national security of this country. Okay, that's why we do what we test a lot of things. We test a lot of things underneath the ocean. We test a lot of things up in the space. Literally up above 40, 50,000, right? And in the outer atmosphere, we test a lot of things on the oceans, on land, all these different weapon systems, all these kinds of things. I mean, so don't tell the American people, don't treat us like fools.
Exactly.
Okay? Treat us like what is happening is a really dangerous thing. And what I do know, and I think, Luke, you've been on sort of the pointy end of the spear of this, from everything that I have seen, that this is a globalist takeover of the New World Order. And for most people in your audience may or may not know, but the phrase New World Order comes out of World War I, okay, which was called the Great War, not World War I until we had World War II. So post World War I or the Great War is when the phrase the New World Order came into vogue. And and here we are about 100 years later. We went through the Bolshevik Revolution all the way to exact what we're kind of facing a Bolshevik revolution right now, but it's a little it's different, different players, same idea, same ideology that tends to be behind it. But we're going through this period of time, and is this? I'm going to stand and I'm going to fight for this country and do everything we can. Your podcast, your voices matter. Your audience's voices and what they do matter. All this stuff matters right now because they are going to try to shut us down. Kamala Harris has said if she's the president, she will shut down basically free speech. I mean, Hillary Clinton was on the other day. These people are all in collusion with each other. Yep. So anyway.
We played that Hillary Clinton clip on here where she says, if we allow free speech, we're going to lose total control. And that's exactly what is going on here. We have a tweet from MTG that I think is also kind of important to play. Before that, Steph, read off the super chats really quickly here.
All right, we got a super chat from Switzerland Play IT saying $1 because I know y'all miss my Sophia lines.
We do. Good luck with Sophia, Switzerland Play IT. Keep going.
Luke's Itchy Pride Hole says, Clintina is not my fault. We are in this economic disaster because I vote for the loser party. And then a side note, we have also here question for General Flynn. Why did you want to be a general? What did you have to do to become one? Would you do it all over again?
Yeah, you don't join the army or you don't go in the military to become a general. So I appreciate the question and thank you for it. But when I first joined, when I came out of college and went to a public university, University of Rhode Island, great school. They amazing. Actually, had a great time there. And I went through ROTC, and I went in the military, and I didn't think I was going to stay in. But my first assignment was 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I had such an amazing experience. I actually deployed twice during that time. I deployed to Grenada to fight against the Cubans who had taken over the island of Spice, the Spice Island down in Grenada, the southern tip of the Caribbean. And then I also deployed to Central America. This was in the early 80s, circa like 83 time frame. So I deployed, and I found people that I really liked, loved actually, and I still stay in touch with many of them from those days because they were just great Americans. They were great servants of our country, and they were just like you and me. I mean, they were just basic guys, and mainly guys, and we did a lot of things together. We were a very good unit, exceptional unit, and I had such a dynamite first experience that I decided to stay in. And as time went on, to kind of get to the essence of your question, they don't sprinkle fairy dust on you and poof, you're a general. Mm-hmm. You've got to work your ass off to get to that level, and I know that I did. So, I ended up being blessed to be part of some really great organizations, airborne and special operations, and other organizations that I was part of. And I rose to the highest levels of our military intelligence to the point where I was the most senior guy in military intelligence in the Department of Defense, leading one of the largest intel agencies in the world, and also assistant director of national intelligence. So very significant places that I got to. And guess what? Barack Obama picked me for both those jobs, which is amazing. And I tell people that when you get to that level, you're appointed, and you're appointed principally by the president, in this case, President Obama. And they do look at your kind of your file, right? And it's not just, you guys got a great career and all that. A lot of these guys, that level, they generally have served in a bunch of different, tough spots and tough jobs. But I was also a Democrat. So, and like I said in the film that I created that we'll show here, maybe a little clip later, I didn't give a shit about politics because I just cared about our country. I grew up that way. But on my file, I'm a Democrat. So, and I was very blunt in my latter part of my throughout my whole career, kind of like I'm talking right now. And I think, as Tucker Carlson says in the film, maybe it was a case of bringing your enemies closer. I didn't feel like they were my enemies, but I did feel like I was in a very sort of in a place of tension with the Obama administration, which I was part of, and I found myself, and Luke talked about it, a little bit earlier, kind of whistleblowing to a degree. I wasn't really whistleblowing. I was basically telling the truth in front of Congress about the enemies we were facing overseas, and the administration under Obama wanted a particular set of talking points, and I just wasn't going to do it because it was a lie. Yeah. And I had come from the battlefield, so people had, I saw guys that I knew get killed. And when you go through those experiences that I have gone through, it's a very emotional thing.
Yeah, they wanted Syria to follow the Libya model. Mm-hmm. And I think it was your voice, as well as a lot of other voices, that prevented that from happening and stopped this larger kind of regime change that the Obama administration and the intel agencies wanted in that specific country. If I could ask you, and then this is kind of an open-ended question, but as you were ascending through the ranks, what was kind of the biggest, most surprising revelation that you found out about how things actually work when you were going through that process?
Yeah, I think it was when I was at the in my special operations role, where I was responsible for a lot of different aspects of intelligence in the world of special operations, and it was really fascinating the network that I had at my sort of beck and call, and how we were to use them against, in this case, fighting the war on terror, right? Fighting Al Qaeda and ISIS and some of these other groups. And what I learned there was the corruption inside of some of our 3-letter agencies, and some of it was just direct corruption. Some of it is incompetency to a degree, and some of it is because they're sort of like government people, right? They're bureaucrats, and if they take a risk, then it could ruin their career, and they're more interested in their career than they are in getting something done, like accomplishing a mission and going, and making sure we move the mission of the government or whatever the issue is that's in play. And very, very, there's a culture in the organizations in government, particularly in the intelligence community and specifically in some of the more infamous ones. It's a culture of selfishness, and they see themselves as though they are their own organization, in some cases as though they're their own government. And no matter who's in the White House, no matter who's in the Department of Defense, no matter who's in Homeland Security, whatever the government is, they will wait you out because they'll just crush whatever ideas you have, like what we saw in the last, during the Trump administration. And then, in fact, they created conditions to damage and to destroy people and the system itself. And in the film, I also talk about reassessing the assassination attempts of the 1960s, not just the attempts, but the actual, killing of both Kennedys and Martin Luther King. And I also showcase Malcolm X. And we need to reassess. And I said this over a year ago. So when this movie was first created, it came out in April. So I talked about reassessing the assassination attempts of the 60s because we are falling into another place. And lo and behold, we've had 2 attempts against Donald Trump. The first one almost turned his head into red mist. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the second one where, the only way, and what we've learned is that the FBI special agent in charge, or maybe they call him the assistant director down here in Miami, he admitted that the guy that they had this guy on their radar. So, and the fact that he was over in Ukraine, he more than likely, I'd almost guarantee that he was on the radar of the CIA. So,
absolutely.
So we're dealing with a time where, like, the guy that's the leading candidate, he can't get enough security. They're trying to kill him. I mean, so we have a different place where we are today, folks, and where we're going if we don't get this election right. Even if Trump wins. So let's say he wins, when he wins, right? Because that's what people want. They want that positive message. They want that positive stroke. So I'll say when Trump wins, which by all rights he should win all 50 states, all electoral votes, But these people they're so hungry for power, and they will do anything. It's a culture of death. So if Trump wins, or when Trump wins, 4 years isn't going to be enough to fix these problems.
Yeah. And then we also have to understand they're going to set up traps, and they're setting up situations now where he won't even be able to institute a lot of the policies that he wants. They want to codify funding for Ukraine that Donald Trump won't be able to end. And there's a bunch of bureaucrats, there's a bunch of people embedded within the federal government that are already setting up plans to stand in the way of his future administration from being able to carry out his wishes. So I think that's another important factor, as well as the larger economic factor that we're dealing with right now, because I do believe 2025 will be a major economic year as well, especially with the way that things are going financially now. We're just going to finish off reading these super chats and then continue the conversation. Steph, let's get them really quickly.
All right. So we have Anonymous saying, General Flynn, are you aware how the VA is hurting us veterans? I will not be able to walk soon because of the incompetence in charge. Help us. They are killing us. And then there's a follow-up related that says, hey, by Freaky Fireflies, saying, hey, General Flynn, don't stand by and let the VA kill us. Treatment is now a privilege, not something we earned. I signed up at 17 after 911 to serve. I'm tired of watching my fellows die while I soon will be in a wheelchair.
Wow.
That's absolutely horrible.
Wow.
That goes back to my question, or I was thinking of to ask you: is it incompetence or is it the deep state, the blob, as our friend Mike Pence likes to say?
Yeah. There are some incompetence. I mean, there's a phrase: the bottom third teach the top third. And I learned that early on in my military career. And I hate to sort of dig into the teaching side, but there's a training side of the military as well, and an education side. So there is a component of incompetence, no doubt. I mean, some of the best people that we have. I mean, you look at a guy like Elon Musk. You say to yourself, well, there's guys like him that are. Trump is another example that have these very, very successful lives, and they do really well in growing gigantic organizations. And you say to yourself, why is our government so corrupt? And why don't those type of people get involved? Well, in Trump's case, he did. He gave up everything to do that. So the Veterans Administration, first of all, we have, I think the numbers, I'm told about 60,000 homeless veterans in the country right now, which is unsad, especially with all the illegals that we're putting up in hotels. I mean, it's just stunning what we're giving to illegals and our veterans. The other thing that's a real tragedy is that we used to say that, probably a couple of years ago, that we were at about 22 suicides a day for veterans. And I think now we're upwards. I mean, it could be as high as 40. I've seen some stats where, because there's a lot of underreporting. Mm-hmm. Here's what I would say about the VA itself. The bureaucracy, because it's kind of hit and miss, to be honest with you. And I've looked into this, and I've looked at different. I've talked, sat down. I'm a veteran. I've talked to different people that use veteran services. If you can get to a doctor, the general answer is that the care that you receive is okay, is good. If you can get to a doctor. The problem is signing up, going through the red tape, going through all the processes to actually see somebody. Because if you're a veteran, you're right. You've earned that sort of privilege to be able to get veteran care, and we're supposed to do that. We're supposed to take care of that, right? But we're in a really interesting place with and there's a lot of complaining that for years about the Veterans Administration, and I do think that it's the administration side and not the care side. It's the administration side that's really broken and really does need to be repaired. And there was some good things that were happening in the last couple of years of the Trump administration where I saw some adjustments. And a lot of it is kind of get the government out of the way. I mean, for me, I want to make sure that we prioritize those that serve our country. We take care of those that are homeless. I mean, my God, we got homeless people that served our country and were willing to give their lives up, and they're homeless, but yet we're putting illegals in 4 and 5 star hotels and giving them paychecks and giving them credit cards and giving them phones. It's ridiculous. So what I want to do is I would really like a sort of a reassessment of whether or not we have, the Veterans Administration that recognizes a certain set of conditions for those veterans to basically be a place where somebody is managing it and making sure that we're not screwing these people over. But I'm more for privatization, because privatization gives there's more competition. Mm-hmm. There's the care. When you get to care is generally the same. In fact, a lot of doctors that I know that worked in the VA worked in private hospitals. So I'm more of a privatization person when it comes to our veterans, and then saying to a veteran, giving them the choice, do you want this or do you want that? Here's what we can give you. It's equally in terms of cost. In fact, actually, privatized health care for our veterans is probably cheaper. So there's a long discussion for that here, and I won't belabor it, but that's kind of where my head is at. We have got to break through this bureaucracy of the administrative side of veteran care and really get them to where they can get care. Like if I make a phone call because I pay for health care, I mean, I got full veterans benefits, right? Full veterans benefits, but I use private care. So I served to get that, and then I don't use it because, frankly, where I live, there's not a big VA support apparatus. You got to drive a couple hours. So I end up going to private. I use a private, and thank God that I've stayed healthy. So, knock on wood, I've stayed healthy. So sorry about
No
that.
one's at the door. Don't worry,
He's after
Atlas.
me.
It's okay. Come on.
So anyway, I say that because I want veterans to have the full range of opportunities, and so that's where I'm at with veterans.
I'm horrified to hear those numbers on the veterans. A few years ago, I've been a long-term cannabis advocate, and veterans were one of the groups that I was advocating for in terms of cannabis because of PTSD. And I remember that number, the 22 veterans a day that were committing suicide. So to hear that it's up as high as over 40 is just devastating. I can't imagine. And I'm guessing that the VA still prefers to send you 6 months worth of opioids to your home.
Yeah, I mean, they always treat it the wrong way. A good friend of mine's son, who I did meet and I got to know him, he was a Navy SEAL. He sadly killed himself. This a couple of years ago, but it's a great example because he was going through the VA and they were treating him for alcohol abuse. They weren't treating him for what he had, which was traumatic brain injury, which is a deadening of part of your head. And because he was involved in explosives, ordnance, he was involved in sniper training, he was involved in close quarters combat. I mean, that's a Navy SEAL, at the highest end of our training, and they were treating him for the wrong things, and he ended up killing himself. And very tragic, but that example is an example of many. And one of the things that we do with veterans, I mean, so if you're in the military and you are terminated from your service, right? So we call it ETS, right? It's end of your service basically, and you're terminated from service, and you leave this brotherhood, and I'll just use that phrase right now, or word right now, brotherhood, because there's a sisterhood in there too. But when you leave this brotherhood and you go back to your hometown, and people appreciate you. They pat you on the back and all that. We got a little parade for you. We have a Veterans Day. We should have a Veterans Year. And, and what we end up doing is we just kind of like go, oh, thank you for your service. And the person's got all kinds of problems. Mm-hmm. You get post-traumatic stress, right? Which can be a physical manifestation, or it can just be a mental manifestation of the problems that they're dealing with because they saw so much on a battlefield. And all of us go through that serve in those kind of operational units. And I just think, it's a tragedy because they do treat the symptoms instead of the real causes, the real root causes. And in that case, when we talk about explosives and traumatic brain injury, that a lot of people have received traumatic brain injury because of the ordnance used against many of our forces that were on the roads and paths and trails that where these bombs went off, these explosives that the enemy used, and they were deadly. So, I mean, that's another issue, and that's a big one that I don't think we have really dealt with as well as we could.
Yeah, if you look at what's really happening in this world, if you look at the way that veterans are being treated, hurricane victims, if you look at the opioid epidemic, you look at our food and water supply being poisoned, we're not just second-class citizens. Americans are enemies of the state. And this is why I always keep saying being happy and healthy is a modern-day act of resistance, since, of course, there is, in my opinion, a larger agenda to make you fat, sick, and dumb. And you look at everything that the government prioritizes, you look at all the actions that they're doing. There's literal Homeland Security and FEMA government agencies now talking about diversity efforts and making sure that aid first goes to the LGBTQ community rather than actually just helping people because they need help. You're prioritizing help dependent on people's social status and woke social structure that is absolutely un-American and is extremely racist, extremely discriminatory. We're dealing with some significant issues in this country, and I think a lot of them are deliberate. And whether it's special interest groups kind of doing this or whether it's the U.S. government, it's happening. And this is why I think the government is freaking out right now, saying, stop with the conspiracy theories, stop talking about potential, weather modifications or potential disinformation. No. You guys have lied to us. You guys have let us down. You guys have implemented policies that directly attack us. Therefore, we need to all kind of start these conversations now more than ever. Before moving on to the next kind of platform, we want to tell you about one of our sponsors. That, of course, is Land of Biltong. If you guys want some, we got some on the table here. It's actually pretty awesome and incredible. It's like it's biltong. It's not beef jerky. It's like healthy beef jerky.
Can I open this?
Absolutely. You can have as much as you guys want.
delicious.
We have more in the refrigerator as well. The U.S. Wagyu is my favorite, and it has no fillers, no preservatives, no artificial flavors, no dyes,
I'm
no
doing
sugar.
this carnivore thing now.
This is perfect
I
for
was screwed
that.
up.
It's delicious. I
Yeah,
think you'll enjoy it.
Land of Biltong is a family-friendly snack. It's a family-friendly business. They are low in carbs, packed with protein. It makes Biltong the ultimate health snack. It's a great source of iron, serves as a source of several other essential nutrients, including magnesium, potassium, and B vitamins, which translates into exceptional gains, which you can get right now on landofbiltong.com. And if you follow any
Finger
kind
looking
of...
good.
It is amazing, and I love
It
this
is really
stuff.
good, and I don't like these type of things, but I love this one.
Yeah, like a lot of people go to the beef jerky at the gas station. And I'm
It's
like,
got
what
a
are you
little
doing?
bite to it too.
Yeah, I think you
Nice.
got the spicy one.
Oh, I definitely did.
I don't know if you want
I got the one that says hot.
Perry,
Yeah.
Perry.
The U.S. Wagyu is also really good here, but you guys could use promo code
We should have
WRC.
read it first.
Promo code WRC for free shipping, and promo code WRC10 for 10% off of purchases over $50. And again, this is a company that supports a lot of independent media, and the government is attacking them. Support them, and you also support us by doing that as well. This is my favorite. I'm going to pass my favorite along there to General Flynn, which I think you would absolutely enjoy. But
This
it's
one's
really
really
good stuff. So definitely
Not
go.
spicy.
Wow, this is delicious. This is actually really good.
It is.
No,
I'm a wuss when it comes to spicy stuff, but that's good.
yeah, we only work with sponsors that
Okay.
we believe in. no, it's totally fun. Everyone has their preferences. That's
Talking about my home.
That's my favorite one. And then
Yes,
we'll
this
give
one's
you.
really good.
We'll you guys could take the whole package, take the whole bags. We got a whole bunch of that stuff here. We gave it out to members of lookunfiltered.com. They loved it as well. So we support small businesses that support us, and this is a great business that supports all of us. So check out landofbiltong.com. We're going to put it in the comment section. So we of course support the companies that support us. Before moving over to the next platform, let's tease up this documentary that you're working on here. I think it will be important. I have the JFK clip pulled up
Beautiful,
here.
beautiful.
Do you want to tell us what we're going to be looking at right now?
Yeah, so I think this is where we talk about reassessing the assassinations of the 1960s, and also the idea where we are sort of flipped on our head, where I was a Kennedy Democrat as a Democrat, as a registered Democrat, and that was my whole family. I'm one of 9 children. My mother and father were very active. My mother especially was very active in the Democrat Party at that time, and she was, but she was actually also the president of the Right to Life Association. So I mean, to find a Democrat today who's the president of the Right to Life Association, you'd have to watch a fake false movie or something. I mean, you have to watch some kind of fiction. So that's what this is about. As I said, I mean, we take in the film, we go through some of what the government has experienced over time, as well as my military experiences, and then we conclude with I think a really inspirational story of survival. And during the film itself, people get a chance to meet my family, and many other people. Tucker Carlson, Devin Nunes are 2, and some other people that have played big roles in my life. And so anyway.
Yeah, we're going to play that clip right now. And then there's also a lot of other things developing right now. I'm on Twitter right now. There's also reports of Iran being hit right now by the Israelis. There's also other reports coming in of the American water supply system being hit with a cyber attack. We're going to get into that and a lot more. But here's the clip that General Flynn was just talking about.
We've had great leaders. They understood that there was something not right. And Eisenhower was really the first to warn the nation that, hey, there's this thing called the military-industrial complex, and we've got to be careful of it. Fast forward to John F. Kennedy, he actually called out the CIA, made the comment, I'm going to break it into 1 million pieces. And you have to ask yourself, what did he know? So for 40 years, we have this Cold War, giant programs that are being built. But that Cold War, it gave rise to the things that President Eisenhower and President Kennedy warned us about. The military-industrial complex, the intelligence services at the time, we now know in Kennedy's assassination, were part of his demise. It's like, how did we ever get here?
and I think history doesn't always repeat, but it does rhyme. And I think
Yeah.
we're definitely in that kind of version where a lot of special interest groups want to start more wars. They want us involved in battles, not just in the Middle East, but also in Europe. And they're kind of driving us towards that. Donald Trump, say what you may about some of his latest comments, has been the anti-war candidate. And I think that's one reason out of many reasons why they are targeting him, why they're trying to take him out, and why he's such a threat to this kind of military-industrial complex that not a lot of people usually like to talk about. You never hear this talk on the corporate media. You used to until they silenced a lot of those particular voices. But I think this conversation is important more than ever, especially with the JFK history, especially with the Bay of Pigs invasion and the larger kind of moves that they were making. Operation Northwoods is something that I automatically start to think about. But with Donald Trump potentially being in office, do you think they will still try to do something like an Operation Northwoods? Do you think that threat is still there? And do you think Trump is insulated from it in any way comparatively than where he was a few years ago?
Yeah, I think that the first administration with Trump is that he really, and I say this specifically in the movie, Trump really didn't know the ways of Washington, D.C. And, you know, he made some choices about people, and a lot of it was just sort of forced on him by the GOP, the RNC, the establishment, you know, even Mike Pence. And I talk about Mike Pence in the film very specifically. So your question is, you know, what should we expect if Trump gets back into office, right? Hopefully he gets back into office. So the answer is yes to all of that. So will they make every effort to deny this man the ability to really truly lead this country? They absolutely will. Jamie Raskin, I mean, he's already said if Trump wins, you know, we're going to make it our responsibility to not let him govern. I mean, basically he said we're going to try to not even allow him to take office. I mean, what the hell does that mean? They're going to do that through what? Like a vote on the floor? I mean, so these people don't care about the Constitution. They don't care about the rule of law. They care about the rule of law as it affects them. They care about the Constitution as it affects them. And they basically usurp it and undermine it to go after anybody that they think is an enemy. So Trump will go into office and he's going to have, you know, literally the best, toughest people, and not, you know, when a president takes office now, and it's been this way since probably the last 4 or 5 presidents, let's say, they had to hire about 3,000 to 4,000 people that were political appointees for all of the agencies, activities, departments, commissions, and such, right? So I actually don't think that Trump ought to do that. I actually think that Trump ought to, and during the transition, and I know specifically where, but and I know that he's talked with Elon about being kind of taking a look at government reform, right? So I do think that there are some decisions that need to be made by the president and you know, and with some advice, some good advice by really good people about what the government should look like. And I'm a big fan of this Milei out of Argentina, where, you know, he does the fuera off the whiteboard, right? Yeah, right. Am I saying that right? Mm-hmm. So there's got to be some of that. Has to be some of that. Trump also needs to make sure that the people that he does bring around him are like-minded, not ass kissers, but like-minded in terms of the direction that the United States of America must take in the next couple of years, because 4 years goes by very rapidly, and there's so many things that need to be done. And for President Trump, I think you know, one of them is to get our economy kickstarted again. And we should talk about the economy maybe in this segment, because the digital currency thing is going to come into play here very, very soon. So we need to talk about that so people can be ready for it. But Trump is going to have to really take our economy, you know, by the horns. And the best way to take our economy and move it rapidly to where we're like killing it is the energy sector. The energy sector in the United States of America is one of the best ways for the United States of America to demonstrate a level of strength, right? Like the human body. If you're really healthy, you know, you strengthen those areas that are weak, and we got some weak areas, but you take those areas that are strong and you make them stronger. And one area that we can turn into a real powerhouse is our energy sector, all forms of energy. And Trump is smart about that. So if he kickstarts that, that gets our economy going. And then one of the other areas I think that he needs to be, and I've said this before, the greatest national security threat to the United States of America right now is the lack of trust between the American people and the government that's supposed to serve us, right? It's just there's zero trust. That is a huge national security risk, and that has to be fixed. And Trump can do that. He can do that by, a couple of ways. One, picking good people around him that are very transparent. I'm a huge fan of Bobby Kennedy, and I think, this whole thing about make America healthy again, I don't want Bobby Kennedy to go in there and take over like the CDC or Health and Human Services. I want Bobby Kennedy to go in there and fix healthcare as it is, as it should be for the people of this country. We just talked about the Veterans Administration. Bobby Kennedy has done a lot of good, and I know he's fought the good fight against the government, and he's won a lot of battles, and he's got a lot of good ideas. But at the same time, Bobby Kennedy also has other aspects of his life that could really play in, and that's in the world of the intelligence community or this military-industrial complex that we talked about. So good advisors for those kinds of issues that really matter. I do think that it's like guys like me. There's a lot that I know about the national security apparatus of our country, State Department, Department of Defense, Department of Justice, right? the intelligence community. These are big structures and big organizations, and the people that are in them right now will sit and wait you out. So Trump can't wait for that. What he's got to do is he's got to go in and act. He's got to pull some plugs. He's got to eliminate some of the fat that exists. He's got to put like I said, I was joking earlier about the
Got to use a Malay treatment.
Yeah, this diet, tough way, right? This diet I'm on, right? I mean, I don't know why I'm on a diet. I'm on a diet, because do I need more energy? Do I sound like I need more energy? But we've got to give an infusion of something of honesty, transparency, trust. A culture has got to be put into this country, and it can only be put in by the President of the United States. The thing about the presidency, the President of the United States has extraordinary authority to do extraordinary things during extraordinary times. Most people don't know, and I wrote an article about this about 2 weeks ago, maybe a week ago. Most people don't know, but the government right now has 43 national emergencies in effect. 43. That a president can go execute that right now. And most people don't know that. And that's the President of the United States that can automatically give that kind of direction, and immediately 150 laws kick in. And those laws give extraordinary power. So if the communists get in, that kind of authority allows the government to take over all farms. It allows the government to decide whether or not you're going to have a bank account. It allows the government to decide whether or not you're going to accept or get any kind of health care. I mean, those are just little things, right? I mean, those are what that's what people live and die for. So, but those are a couple of things that give the government, but only through the executive power of the presidency. And some of these also give authority. And this is one of the things that I know Trump was not aware of and generally now is. It gives the authority of the president to delegate down to his cabinet level ministers or his Secretary of Homeland Security, Defense, to do things here on the landscape of the United States, on the domestic landscape, to take action domestically against citizens. And the cable or whoever's watching whoever's like your opposition out there, they're going to freak out. Go read my latest article that I just put out.
What was the website? Where can people find that?
GeneralFlynn.com. GeneralFlynn.com.
We'll put that in the description as well. But I agree to definitely with your point, the focus on energy, because the Democrats don't like people having energy. And the price of energy is correlated with our economy, but the price of everything. And if we truly did drill, if we did prioritize energy, the economy would be way better off. But I think there's a concerted effort to stagnate the economy. I mean, right now in an election year, they're kind of doing the best that they can to keep the price low. They're getting rid of some of the reserves that we have. They're not doing strategic decisions. I also do kind of worry, and I do kind of wonder how Trump will kind of respond to the larger situation happening right now in Iran, as we just got breaking news that the airspace over Iran, Iraq, and Jordan are, quote, nearly empty, as a lot of people are awaiting a larger kind of Israeli massive response to what's going on here, as Mario Nafal is also now reporting that there have been alleged reports of explosions near Tehran and Isfahan, Iran, specifically potentially related with their nuclear facilities. Now, this is a dangerous gambit. The Iranians also have threatened to cut off the Strait of Hormuz. The Yemenis, the Houthi rebels inside of them, are also talking about attacking container ships right now. It seems like the situation in the Middle East is getting absolutely, completely out of control. And I'm kind of wondering, how can Donald Trump kind of respond here? How will he respond as he's making kind of very verbose, very aggressive statements kind of against Iran here?
Yeah.
Does he need to do that to have the tough talk for diplomacy, or do you see a potential war that could unfold with Iran as Donald Trump could be the president?
Yeah. So let's take a step back and where we are physically right now, physically globally. So the Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are the president and vice president of the United States of America, and their ineptitude in foreign policy has been just so outrageous. I mean, it's probably it is the worst, not in my lifetime. It is the worst in our history, and so that's number one, because it's not just affecting what we're seeing unravel in the Middle East. It's also affecting the situation in Eastern Europe. It's affecting the situation in the Pacific, the Asia-Pacific basin, where the Chinese are they're stretching their muscles, so to speak, militarily, and we can talk a little bit about that. But this situation in the Middle East now, to kind of go there. So first of all, what are the potential targets that are being hit? And look at the time. What time is it right now? So they're hitting them at night, late at night. So they're going to minimize, quote unquote, civilian casualties. But folks, war is not fair.
Yeah.
Period. So don't tell me about civilian casualties. We firebombed Dresden to end World War II in Europe, and we dropped 2 atomic bombs on 2 cities in Japan to end the war in World War II. So, if you want to get into the philosophy of civilian casualties, then don't go to war. Don't vote for people that want to take us to war. And that's what that's what this left machine and the military-industrial complex and the establishment wants to keep doing. So the bombing, where are these potential targets? So Isfahan, Tehran. My guess is you're probably looking at the Ministry of Defense, maybe the actual capital itself. But my guess is that they're probably, and I'm hearing the breaking news just like you guys. So they're probably bombing the Ministry of Defense to basically say, your command and control, because they've already taken out Hamas, Hezbollah, Houthis, in some respects, but the Houthis are really pretty slick here, and they fired a couple of big long-range missiles. So, and then Isfahan is a alleged nuclear facility, or where they're putting together one of their nuclear capabilities. So the Israelis are basically saying to Tehran, as Bibi Netanyahu said the other day, like him or not, that we are going to take action based on what they did. Now, Iran fired, I think it was close to 400 missiles. I mean, Netanyahu said 200 the other day, but I think that number is actually double from what we saw. And they were actually firing. So Iran was actually firing missiles that were empty, just empty shells, so they could overwhelm the Iron Dome system. Very smart tactically to try to overwhelm that, so maybe some of the missiles with warheads could get through to do what? Kill civilians, right? So get off the civilian casualty thing, because that's what happens in war. What you don't want to do is you don't want to have war. Israel is in a place where this is not about winning. This is not about winning. Winning went out the door like 6 months ago, and here we are on the 7th of October, or the 10th of October. I'm sorry, the 7th of October anniversary, 1 year anniversary. So this is about survival and of the nation state, not survival of Israel, but survival of the nation state of Israel itself. Because if they don't survive, then what? What happens? And we've seen the leader of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman here, MBS. I think it was last 24 hours, maybe last 48 hours, where he said, we're not taking these Palestinians. We don't want it. In fact, we're not going to have any demonstrations about Palestinians in our country. And all the other countries in the Middle East do the same thing. They basically followed suit, and they haven't been. We don't see any protests. We don't see, because you know why? Because they don't want them. They don't want this problem. Okay, this is a problem that is forced down the throat of Israel. And I don't care what anybody says about the Zionists or all the bullshit. This is a situation where you have essentially a democratic nation that isn't out there cutting heads off, acting like savages, still holding hostages, by the way. Hamas is still holding hostages. And I believe that we still have Americans being held hostage, maybe one or two remaining. So everything that I'm saying is that this is something that is still on the watch of the Biden-Harris administration. We still have, almost a month left. Plus, if the election goes, the way that I would like to see it go with Trump winning, we still have another 2.5 months of the Biden-Harris administration to go. And I want people to understand that this stuff going on in the Middle East right now, this is very, very serious. This is very dangerous. Yeah. And we're getting drawn further and further into it. You talked about the Straits of Hormuz. We've got U.S. combat naval vessels out in the Red Sea. They're getting fired at. I mean, the Houthi rebels, which is an interesting group. I mean, you think about these guys, literally Houthi rebels who are living in the desert out there. They're not very sophisticated, but they're firing missiles that are flying, that are as long as your entire facility is here. They're flying from Yemen all the way into Israel and hitting their targets. So that's a sophistication that I guarantee you the Houthi rebels don't have. That's provided by Iran.
The Iranians. Yep.
So last point, because I think this is important. The United States of America taxpayers, audience, we are paying for this entire war. So we're giving Iran all these billions of dollars of money. They take it. We've basically opened up their bank accounts globally. We lifted all the sanctions under the Obama administration and then under this administration. So we've given them billions of dollars, and we continue to support that. They take that money and they give it to the Hezbollah. They give it to Hamas. They give it to the Houthis. And we're paying money to the Israelis. And we're sending over large formations of military capabilities, naval platforms, some ground forces, certainly command and control, communications. We're sending packages of stuff. I mean, this is why this is this military industrial complex.
Yeah, we left a lot of military supplies in Afghanistan that, according to many reports, are also being found right now in Iran, and they're being sold off internationally. There's also a lot of reports of a lot of weapons missing from Ukraine, a lot of advanced weapons systems that just never made it to the troops on the front lines that are complaining about not having enough gear to fight off the Ruskies and the Russians. So this is such a very dangerous, tumultuous, crazy, wild situation that, if I'm Donald Trump, how do I deal with this? Because personally, I don't want a war. I don't want energy prices to go up. There's neoconservatives out there who say we just got to bomb everything, but that didn't work. That never worked in Iraq.
Never works.
The war, and I got my start protesting the war in Iraq, and that was a war that allowed Iran
unnecessary. It was the worst decision this century to date by the United States of America leadership, and that was under the Bush administration. We did not need to go into Iraq, period.
Yep.
There was no need. We could have used all sorts of other capabilities. We were already in a place called Afghanistan, which is one of the toughest places in the world to get into. You can't put a Navy vessel at a port, and dropping stuff off. You got to fly everything in, or you got to drive it over what we call the Northern Distribution Network. And then all of a sudden, we're 2.5 years into that, and then they decide we're going to go into Iraq for what? On a lie. In the film, I specifically call out Colin Powell, okay? and they make him out, like I say in the film, they make him out to be a saint. And he's in front of the United Nations talking about
yellow cake, and he had that little vial that he was showing everyone.
Exactly.
This will take out everyone.
Total bullshit.
Yeah.
Excuse my Irish, but the him sitting there, and he's got sitting right behind him, the director of the CIA and a whole bevy of people that I know, and he basically is sitting there telling the United Nations, weapons of mass destruction. It's not now. It's going to be later. It's based on a lie. We sent people to Iraq. The amount of money, and I say this in the, I think I say this in the film, the amount of money that we spent in Afghanistan, okay? The amount of money that was spent in Afghanistan and we retreated and left Americans behind was more money that we spent to rebuild all of Europe after World War II, called the Marshall Plan. So we spent more money on a losing cause. Literally, it's probably somewhere between 6 to 10 trillion, but it's north of 6 trillion. And in today's dollars, we spent more money there than we did to rebuild all of Europe after World War II. I mean, that's mind-blowing.
Yep.
Will anybody ever be held accountable for these decisions? This is American taxpayer money, or this is Americans' money.
But just to add to your point, Martha, really quick, the war in Iraq didn't just destroy Iraq. It allowed Iran to have a bigger sphere of influence in the region. And I think methodically, the deep state or the military industrial complex did that on purpose so they had the next boogeyman to go after.
Yeah.
So the plans to bomb Iran and attack Iran have been in play for a very long time. And I think this is why they're trying to blame the Iranians on the assassination of Donald Trump. And I'm trying to get the message out there. Hey, Donnie, it wasn't the Iranians that made the Secret Service stand down. It wasn't the Iranians that made the Secret Service keep you up on that particular stage here. So that's what I'm worried about specifically, because we not only got a stronger Iran, we got a refugee crisis. We got the form of radical Islamists inside of that territory that, of course, now plague the Western world. And now we're going to be following the same kind of blueprint. And I just want to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't follow that same blueprint. I hope he doesn't, but he's dealing with a very complex situation in the Middle East right now that is very difficult to deal with, and I just hope he deals with it in a way with total diplomacy and the prevention of this larger kind of bigger get, which is the Iran war, which they've been after for a while.
I mean, it's the phrase, being handed a 10-pound bag of shit in a 5-pound bag. He's being handed like 1,000-pound bag of shit in a 5-pound bag. So the situation that, let's pray that he wins. The situation that he will walk into is dire, and we're talking nuclear capabilities use in Eastern Europe and Russia. I mean, so that's been on the table, and everybody's
the Russians could give the Iranians nukes.
Well, they've given them all. They've given them other capabilities. The North Koreans could give the Iranians nukes. So we're not dealing with rational people when we deal with ideologies that promote the kind of death cult that we see from some of these nation states. So, and remember, Iran is still designated as a state sponsor of terrorism by our own State Department, but yet we continue to do this craziness. So the situation is going to be very difficult. I do believe that it is fixable, but it has to be. Biden hasn't spoken to Putin in probably over 2 years. Nobody. I don't know who's talking. I mean, John Kerry. He did an end around and spoke with the leadership of Iran. And he's a terrible person. So you have, and you're right. You're exactly right about Iraq. I mean, the level of influence that Iran has been able to extend inside of Iraq, basically the Iraqi government is almost a surrogate of the Iranians now. So we have a really tough situation that Trump will go in.
Yeah.
And we haven't talked about China. We haven't talked about the influence or the rise of China yet. And China's going to have to be dealt with. And that's why, the way I describe Trump in his term was he was really an economic president. He wasn't really a wartime president because we weren't at war. I mean,
he didn't start any
new
wars.
But he didn't start any. He wasn't like going in there to go, we're going to go to war with Russia. The deep state, the bureaucracy of the intelligence community, they use Russia as the boogeyman. And they do it because there are tens of billions of dollars that are allocated for for different aspects, as long as Russia is an enemy. Okay, so there's a dirty little secret that may even be breaking news. So you're talking about those areas where they're already in play. So that gets back to what we talk about with the economy. If Trump comes in and he goes, okay, I'm going to eliminate, like he did, a lot of these regulations, and we're going to kickstart our energy sector again, because we have enough. Just for your audience, we have enough clean coal in this country. Just coal. Okay, never mind fossil fuels and shale oil and nuclear and wind and all the other energy capabilities that we have. We have enough fossil fuel in this country to take care of the rest of the world for 500 years. That's known. That's known resources. So that's just in our country alone. I mean, there's other capabilities that we have, other resources that we have that we haven't even tapped into. Fresh water. Fresh water is a huge commodity globally. And we have one of the biggest freshwater resources on the planet in our Great Lakes, as well as many of our river and mountain systems. And we have great technologies to be able to take and basically make more water, right? I mean, there's a lot of private companies that do it already. So, but that's food, water, and energy. Those are the three principal commodities that a nation state needs to have to be able to not only survive but to prosper. And we have in abundance all of it, and we can do a lot of that. We don't want to be isolationists. I'm not for that, but I am for America first. I mean, I'm going to take care of my home first before I start worrying about, some country in Eastern Europe that I don't even. I mean, look at the guy that's running it. The guy walks around in his goddamn pajamas. He gives a State of the Union in his freaking sweatsuit. I mean, give me a break.
Yeah. Here's a crazy idea. How about we use American taxpayer dollars on Americans? How about that? How about we do something like that? You brought up water, which is also another important aspect for the larger kind of resource problems that a lot of countries are going to be facing as well. We just got the news that a New Jersey water company that's serving over 14 million people was just hit with a cyber attack. So that's also going on as well. We got to go to our callers and our members of LukeUnfiltered.com. We have some super chats here, though. So I'm going to get Bree on the line, who wants to call in and ask us a question right now. But we have a super chat here by Dog Boy. And can you read that one, Steph, and then read all the other ones as I get Bree on the line here with us?
All right. Well, Dog Boy says, "Hi, Mike. You are a true hero. Thank you for all you've done. I hope President Trump makes you head of national security. Then go drain the swamp."
I will. Thank you.
We got Laura Bordas saying, "Husband denied VA after 23 years Navy. They admit it all Navy related, but denied because they can't find his records. What can we do now?"
Wow. I mean, I don't know where you're at, with state or whatever, but the best thing to do is, start locally, go start digging into your local political people there. Go knock on the door of the local Veterans Administration. I mean, and I don't know what the whole situation is, but you're really, I wish I could solve everybody's problems, but you're going to have to go and do things. You're just going to have to get up and go do stuff on your own. Now, I don't know what the situation is again. But God takes care of those who take care of themselves sometimes, and so, pray over it and get out there and knock something out.
So it looks like we got Bree on the line. Bree, thank you so much for becoming a member of LukeUnfiltered.com. Thank you so much for calling in. You are live on air with everyone. What is your question?
Okay, so actually my question is kind of related to something you guys were talking about earlier with the geoengineering. So I'm in California, which out of all the horrible things that California does, they are actually really good about being a little bit transparent, at least on some of these programs that they're doing out here. Like we've got the Santa Ana Watershed Project Authority that is super open about their schedule, and you can line their schedule up with all the massive storms we had out here. So we know that they're doing this. Anyone that doesn't know, they're the crazy ones, not us. But even if Trump gets into the office, what can actually be done about this?
Yeah, let me give you two other things too, because I was there's somebody else listening to this thing that has my number, and they just texted me. So not just California, but Texas. Texas has an official weather modification program, And the website is TDLR, so Tango Delta Lima Romeo, TDLR.texas.gov. That's the weather. That's the Texas official weather modification homepage. Colorado has an official weather modification program, and it's CWCB, Charlie Whiskey Charlie Bravo, CWCB.colorado.gov. That's official Colorado weather modification program. So, you know, I'm done with the misinformation garbage. I agree, but one of the things that California can do, the amount of water that comes out of the various watersheds of the Colorado Rockies up in the east of California that gets wasted and goes right into the Pacific is absolutely outrageous that happens. And so the state, and this is governor after governor, and really the leadership out there, has not taken that watershed and shifted it, because you guys still have water problems. You got times of the year where you got to go to not quarantine, but basically water times when you're holding up whether or not people can even put water on their grass. So the ability to be able to shift that water out of those watersheds is a real concern of mine, and it's something I know that Trump has talked about, but the leadership out in California has not done that. Water is a big deal, and to be able to move those watersheds down from the northern part of the state all the way down to the south is something that you have the full capability to do. If you're talking about other modification type things that California does, California has a lot of capabilities out there, and they got a lot of military resources, a lot of military bases that do a lot of different things. So, I don't know the specific issue that you're talking about. I appreciate you joining us, and this is a pretty cool thing that you're able to video in. I think that's neat.
No, it's absolutely awesome to see the people behind the scenes, to get kind of unfiltered, unscripted questions. Bree, that was a great question. Do you have any other questions you want to ask us? Hold on one second. Let me go.
That was actually a good answer in relation to what I ended up actually asking. But it just feels like this whole thing is like a boogeyman that we can't do anything about. Like right now, they're sending this hurricane into you guys over at Florida. And what these things actually have the ability to do is to stop this kind of activity. And yet it seems like they're using it intentionally to turn our country into rubble.
Yeah. So, I don't know what this is Hurricane Milton we're talking about. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that, that I know exactly what they've done. But what I am saying is that, the question, are there U.S. government and now state level funded and directed weather modification programs? Yeah, there are. So now what we have to do is we've got to get people back in charge of our government, that really need to return honesty to the people of this country that pay for everything. So I hate it when I hear people say, well, the government funds this, the government funds that. Hey, that's taxpayer dollars, right? Those are federal taxpayer dollars. And, and at a certain point in time, way back when, at the beginning of this country, when people were being overtaxed, they did something about it. And I don't want us to get to that point. So, people need to stop saying, well, the government does this, the government funds that, that's us. U.S. taxpayers are funding everything. So we should put greater demands, and we've got to bring trust and transparency back. And that's only going to come if we get the right people in office. And I'm not going to guarantee you that, that when Donald Trump wins, that we're going to have perfection. We are not, because human beings are the way they are. And I hope that he's able to choose the right types of people that get in there and that are fearless, because right now we're going to need that going over these next couple of years.
Absolutely. Great answer. Bree, thank you so much for becoming a member. Being a first-time caller, you also get a free supplement from wearechange.shop. Do you have a supplement you want that we will ship out to you for free for calling and being a member?
Sure. Yeah, I'll do the fatty acid one.
Nice. Awesome.
like that.
The essential fatty, the fish oils. We'll send that over to you. Thank you so much, Bree, for becoming a member of lookunfiltered.com. Thank you so much for calling. If it wasn't for you guys signing up, I wouldn't be here. So, Bree, thank you so much for calling in. It really does mean a lot to us. And it's awesome to see your face. And it's awesome to hear your particular voice here. And this is
That's a great capability. That's wonderful, Bree.
Yeah, we always do our best to try to give back to the members, since of course you gotta make sure that the conversation is totally unfiltered, totally unscripted, and they bring up questions that we know we would never usually get to. But she brings up a question that I was going to bring up earlier, but that I totally forgot about. And this is this tweet by MTG, Congresswoman, who says, "Quote: Yes, they can control the weather. It's ridiculous for anyone to lie and say it can't be done." Now, personally, I would say that it's pretty evident that they could modify the weather. Many governments have, the Chinese government, the Swiss government, but also here domestically inside of the United States. Let's not forget that not so long ago, there was a larger experiment that was practiced that put salt crystals over San Francisco Bay so it could make the, quote, weather gooder. Yes? To curb warming, there's scientists that literally implemented a Bill Gates scientific program that was previously stopped in Europe, but was carried out here without the consent of the governed, without the acquiescence of the people here, that literally affected the climate. Why are we doing this? And this is just the stuff that we're hearing about. This is the stuff that's being reported. Now imagine all the stuff that is not being reported. Now, General Flynn, you would probably know more than anyone else about the larger kind of capabilities and what's possible here. But I do believe that there probably is technology that can make storms worse, and technology that could probably help defeat storms as well. I think that's pretty clear that potential is there.
Yeah. So let's just talk about the word experimentation. Okay, experimentation. So. And I was talking a little bit about this. I alluded a little bit to this earlier about all the different things that we do, right? We experiment with food. We experiment with weapons on the battlefield. We experiment with human beings. We experiment with weather. We experiment with space. We experiment with things undersea. We have been experimenting, with like dolphins as an example, which are brilliant mammals. And dolphins have done the greatest service in what we have learned from dolphins for our submarines. And we have one of the most sophisticated submarine capabilities on the planet, principally because we've experimented with dolphins for so many decades because of things that we've learned about them. So my point about all this is that we experiment with everything. The government constantly does that because if you want to stay, the sort of the top dog to a degree, and that's the direction that every president says we want to continue to, over the last 100+ years, we want to continue to be, the global superpower. We want to be, this strong country. You got to have a strong economy. You can't overextend your military, which we have a poor economy, a weak economy, and we've overextended our military. So those are two indicators of a nation in decline. But we experiment with everything, and clearly, we experiment with the weather. So that's undeniable. Now, whether or not something played a factor here with what's going on, I'm not going to sit here and because I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that our government does a lot of experimentation with a lot of things, and the climate and the and weather patterns are among them.
Yep, that's the point that I made too. We don't have the smoking gun. We don't have the documents or the proof that they're actually doing this with this particular thing. But I think it's also important to speculate and question this, especially with just how nonsensical the government has been acting with all of this.
When they tell you to sit down and shut up and go home because you're misinforming, you're disinforming, you're malinforming the public, that tells you everything you need to know, and they will do that all the time. Just like we just heard in that earlier clip there with what's her name, the
White House spokesperson.
Yeah.
Sorry, Martha, go ahead.
And they don't always do it in the best fashion. I mean, Operation Paperclip, they brought literally the worst of the worst over to continue to experiment and do, build atomic bombs. So it's, when you look at the history of the United States government, it's not always in favor of the people of the United States. We know that they've done psychological experiments on the population at large. They've done things in San Francisco and we've all across the United States to American citizens. So, when you hear that the government has potential capacity to do these things, it's scary.
Yeah, St. Louis, New York, the Tuskegee experiments, the radiation experiments, the level of scientific, crazy, insane studies that were done on unsuspecting American civilians does highlight this larger kind of problem that essentially the government sees us as these kind of guinea pigs that they could mistreat. As of course, we also just got breaking news that a watchdog group uncovered $7 billion in untapped FEMA funds, despite the head of Homeland Security claiming that none were available. This is a clip from Fox Business that just broke a couple minutes ago that we're going to be playing the clip of right now.
Chad Pergram has been following the fallout for FEMA and getting help on the way. The trouble is, help isn't always on the way or even that affordable. They're growing back and forth on this about how FEMA is handling this. Chad, what can you tell us?
Neil, good afternoon. There's a lot of sniping over the politics of disaster relief. It's part of this year's elections. Lawmakers on the right are torching the administration. They believe the feds were not ready for Helene. This worries leaders as Milton bears down on Florida.
When you talk to the people who are directly affected, they will tell you that this has been an abject failure. FEMA has lost sight of its core mission, I think, in so many cases, and the administration has not shown that they were prepared for this, this eventuality and this terrible disaster.
There are different budget lines for money which help cities cope with the migrant crisis and disaster aid, but some Republicans believe DHS is focused on resettling illegal immigrants and not on the storms.
That's pretty clear. That's exactly what they were doing. And to see fellow Americans kind of go there and help each other out is a major white pill moment for me. Seeing individuals take their own kind of action when it comes to helping Americans is something that I think truly is an inspiration and should be focused on. Now, General Flynn, you did mention some organizations that are actually doing on-the-ground work and actually helping people. Do you know some of those organizations? Can you name some of them off right now?
Yep. So one is Citizens Defending Freedom, and people go to my X post pin. I have, and I'm at Jen Flynn, Gen Flynn. I'm trying to get a Wi-Fi thing here, but it's at Citizens Defending Freedom, and on that pinned post is a place where people can donate funds, and I will guarantee that the money that's going into that fund, all of it is going directly to support the hurricane victims of both primarily Helene and now Milton. That's going to hit Florida here really hard. The people that run that, Citizens Defending Freedom, they have chapters in most of the country. The guy that runs it, the principal guy that runs it, I've known him for going on 4 years now. Become very close friends with him. This is a God-centered organization, and you can go look it up. Citizens Defending Freedom. The X post that I have pinned is a sort of a donation page. Please donate $5, $10. We are now, we have people, as an example, we have a guy who we have, who's helping us out, has a huge number of capabilities, from tractor trailers to meals ready to eat to generators, tonnage. It just has a wealth of stuff because he does a lot of stuff for the government, and he's a wonderful man. And he's given us all of the transportation assets at his cost. So we're not even have to pay for trucks that are trucking supplies from two states, South Carolina and Indiana, down principally to North Carolina. Asheville is kind of the center point for where we have sort of placed our emphasis for the relief and the resupply and the logistics effort. And that includes everything. I mean, I say hygiene products, right? Medical care, sleeping bags. Everything. So if you can't give that kind of stuff, if you haven't found a church where that's collecting stuff to send it up there, then you can throw $5, $10, $100 into that Citizens Defending Freedom account, and I guarantee that money's going to good use. It will be 100% will be used for relief, and our next effort, of course, is with Milton, but we're not going to give up on North Carolina. And there's a couple of other states. I mean, I think the Georgia, South Carolina area, we're probably looking at 1,000 dead. North Carolina is going to be much higher than that. So we're not going to give up on North Carolina. We're definitely not going to give up on what's about to happen to Florida. There's much stronger, as I said earlier, there's much stronger leadership in Florida and much more awareness, as you were talking about, than in North Carolina. North Carolina is just an absolute disaster, and they're going to need long-term help, and that's one of the organizations that's going to do it. And I will stay on top of that.
It's so crazy that we have to do this in America. It's so wild that we have to rely on our fellow man to help each other out and not the federal government that is playing politics with all of this. And one of the biggest headlines today was that allegedly the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, refused to take a phone call from Vice President Harris about Hurricane Helen. This was the major news article. It's the top of Reddit. All the corporate media is talking about it. Kamala Harris is attacking Ron DeSantis about this, and Ron DeSantis just responded to this saying, I actually never got a phone call in the first place. So someone is lying here. Specifically, here's the clip of the governor of Florida responding to direct questions about this.
Saying you're not aware of that, and if so, how are you not aware of that?
So Biden called me a couple days ago with Helene when I was on the helicopter. I didn't have any issues. They had helped us with what we've done. I'm not aware that he's tried to call since then. Certainly hasn't called my phone, so I don't know quite where they're getting that information. At the same time, we got the approvals that we need. If there's something else that we need, I'll hop on the phone very quickly, whether that's a FEMA administrator or the president, and we will press the case to be able to get approvals for what we need in Florida. But we have gotten approvals for everything that we've asked for.
Code in this area?
I didn't know that she had called, so I'm not sure who they called. They didn't call me, and their characterization of it was something that they did. It wasn't anything that anybody in my office did in terms of saying that it was political.
Yeah, that's kind of a political kind of undermining of Ron DeSantis and distracting him.
It's pretty stunning.
Yeah.
I mean, we're about to get hit with what potentially could be a Cat 5 hurricane, massive disaster. We got people evacuating all over the place, and they're playing this game. If the governor didn't get a call, I mean, believe me, if the Vice President of the United States of America wants to call somebody, they will get that person on the line. Trust me. They have the full capability. It's not like, Ron's out to the, they have the full capability to get a hold of him.
He just said he got a phone call while he was in a helicopter, for God's sake.
Yeah.
So I think
from the president of the United States.
From the president of the United States. If Kamala wants to get a hold of the governor of Florida, she absolutely can do that at any moment.
I think what they're trying to do, and I think this is something that's going to be happening more in October, there's going to be a kind of deliberate push to make Kamala the commander-in-chief. I think there might be even some kind of event to get Biden completely out of the picture, as of course it's Kamala making the larger speech about October 7th today. It's Kamala that's putting in the pomegranate tree. It's Kamala that's calling the vice president, that's calling the governor of Florida. So they are kind of already positioning her in this leadership role, as I think October is going to be full of more surprises like that. And I think there might be an artificial surprise that might make her potentially even the commander-in-chief or some kind of larger, grandiose political leader. Because if you look at the poll numbers, you look at the predicted markets, she's not doing too well. I don't know if we could believe some of those polls, but I think the month of October is going to be one hell of a crazy month, and I think we're going to have a lot more surprises from here. I don't know what you're seeing, General Flynn, specifically with your kind of perspective and ears on the ground and the sources that you have, but I think we are only seeing the beginning of multiple October surprises to come.
Yeah, the biggest one that's going to hit here very soon, and there's a summit, I think it's Kavkaz, Russia. The BRICS are holding a summit on essentially a global shift in the economic system, and we're not a real big player in this. This is the BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, plus I think another 25 nations that represent a little over 80% of the world's population of the nation states that exist on the planet. So that the BRICS consortium is a principally an economic consortium, but they also have a lot of military agreements in there as well. So they're going to move to a central bank digital currency system where that is going to be gold backed and move away from the U.S. dollar as the currency of choice. Now, those decisions have already been made. This is all sort of water under the bridge, a done deal. When they meet, they're going to basically put the stamp of approval on it, and we're going to move in that direction. So what does that mean? That means that since the early 1970s, the U.S. dollar was the currency of choice, and really post World War II, for all global trade. And we called it the petrodollar sometimes, and it was based on, everything was based on the value of the dollar. So the value of the dollar is about to shift, and they're, sadly, and most people don't know this. They can go to read. They can read. This is what I do at 3:00 in the morning. They can read Executive Order 14067. Executive Order 14067. That is the central bank digital currency executive order signed by Joe Biden, Uncle Joe, and he signed it about 2.5 years ago. They already beta tested it with parts of the government and certainly parts of the corporate world that is within the realm of DEI. And they know basically how it's going to unfold here. So we have bought into this central bank digital currency system. The BRICS nations are about to put the stamp on it. It is going to be a gold-backed system where they trade based on how much gold the nation states are holding. We still hold a lot of gold, but I don't think people are ready for that. I will tell you, I was in Europe this summer for a few weeks, and I visited different countries. And 10 years ago, if you were in Europe, they would beg you for a U.S. currency, a 10, a 20 for a tip or something like that. You're traveling, and these are, stuff that I do. And this time, they didn't want anything to do with U.S. dollars. It was either credit, and primarily credit, or they would accept a euro. But it was like, they really wanted credit because the U.S. dollar just wasn't as attractive as it used to be because they're moving. The Europe is already sort of, demonstrating kind of a look into the future. The other two things, and you mentioned the cyber attack against the water system. I actually think, and Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum said this within the last year, to expect a large cyber attack. He said it. I mean, you can go look it up.
He conducted war drills called the Cyber Polygon.
Exactly. Yep. So because you've been on this a lot. And then the other thing is this health scare. I mean, it's not just a scare. I mean, these people. Tedros out of the World Health Organization with his, he called it Mpox because I don't want people to think it's monkeypox. It ain't monkeypox. It's manufactured pox. That's why when he put out the national or the international emergency or directive, he actually stated in the directive Mpox because the M stands for manufactured, like a lot of these things that we're dealing with. So, last point from me because I know we've been at this for a while. The globalists are what we're up against, and the globalists have, they're pulling in these different ideologies. Chinese Communist Party, the radical Islamists in Iran, Russia, and they're pulling them together. That doesn't mean that those countries don't want their sovereign status. I actually think that they do, but the globalists are pulling this together under the rubric of the World Economic Forum, which is kind of like, to use military vernacular, world sort of a command and control headquarters. Then you've got the World Bank, you've got the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, you got the International Monetary Fund, you've got the United Nations. So you have these globalist organizations that have matured over time, and they're actually pulling the threads or pulling the strings on a lot more things than we really should allow them to pull. Right? The U.S. used to be able to be the power broker in the room and say, not here, right? Not at this time, And so Joe Biden was put in charge, Kamala Harris, who got no votes in the Democrat primary, but yet she was chosen as the vice president of the United States of America for Joe Biden, who was, like I already explained about Build Back Better. It's to build, it's to basically destroy everything and build it back better in their image. So those are just a couple of things: cyber, an economic shift, and a health emergency in just the next couple of weeks. Never mind the madness that we're dealing with Mother Nature plus, right? Yep. And I'll just leave it at that.
Absolutely. This was a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. We have a tradition where we usually ask a question from our previous guest to our future guest. Mm-hmm. So we're going to soon ask you a question from yesterday's guest, and then we're going to ask you to think of a question for tomorrow's guest. Who's tomorrow's guest, Martha?
Steve Ciglione. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Pastor. I think he's a friend.
And then Mac.
Yeah. Ciccolone. Yeah,
Thank you so much. Ciccolone.
Yeah. He's a good man.
So he's going to be on tomorrow with Mac Lawson
that's great.
as well. So
He's great.
you
He'll
will
be a great guest.
You will be asking a question for him after we ask you a question. We're just going to try to read off some of these super chats really quick here. Steph, try to read off some from the top. I'm going to read off some from the bottom. We got one from Based Joe saying, "I'm just here to give you my money." Thank you, Based Joe. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Little Drinky Poo says, "Biggest threat through our national security is our foreign policy. We go around putting sanctions on countries and overthrowing regimes, and we sit here wondering why they want America to fall." The foreign policy of America definitely deserves to be questioned. Steph, read off the top ones.
Okay, we have Missy Kin saying, "Everyone should watch the Flynn documentary. Thank you to General Flynn and his family. Question, is it even possible to defeat these barbarians?"
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. I mean, don't think for a second that this is an unwinnable war. We can win this.
How do we win this?
Well, we got to get the right leaders. I mean, you got it. Leadership matters. Leadership matters a lot. And folks, you got to pick the right leaders. You know, if you want to be on a championship team, you better have a good captain. You know, I've been on championship teams, and so let me tell you, if you want to win, if you want to be, you know, in the winner's circle here, you got to have the right people. And I mean good people that have good hearts, they're strong, you know, they're fearless, and they're not worried about their own damn ego, right? Check that at the door and focus on the mission.
King of Biltong says, "We happily will send General Flynn some of our products. Thank you for your service, sir." And that's the land of Biltong. So we'll connect you with.
Oh, I love that. The spicy
Biltong.
stuff was amazing.
Yeah, the Wagyu is
I'll try
the
this
best
too.
in my opinion.
This is, I'll grab some of that.
Keep going, Steph, really quick.
We have Not a Joke saying, "Sorry if I missed it, but what was the truth about FEMA funding? I'm hearing a lot about Congress not passing additional funding or being on vacation." And then a follow-up from Not a Joke saying, "I couldn't call in, but I still wanted to ask because of the guest. You always hear about people not wanting to join the military because it's woke, but I'm wondering if it could be that good people who would serve don't because most of the wars are BS."
Yeah, I mean, so yes, and again, like, you know, we have a DEI culture in the military right now, and it's sad for me to sit here and say, look, you know, I you know, do I question? Do I push people into the military? I'm a part of that institution, and I feel a responsibility to try to help that institution to make it stronger and better. But right now, we have a culture of this DEI nonsense, and that has to be cleaned up. That has to be cleaned up big time. That's why we got to get Trump into office. I mean, if we don't, we're going to have more of the same. Frankly, I think a lot of our senior military leadership really is going to need to be cleaned out, because we can't have this. People don't trust sending their sons and daughters into the Army or into the Marine Corps. I mean, it's a really bad situation right now. It really is, and I hate the fact that I talk like that about our military, because I love it and I know that it can be better.
Let's ask our question, and then we also have the trailer for your documentary that we're going to end off this broadcast on. Steph, ask the question.
The question for you is, what is one piece of advice you can give someone on creating connections and bridging with other people?
Wow. Be sincere. It's a great question. I mean, I think that the best way to do that is just to be sincere. Don't try to be anything but who you are, and really, really understand that what your potential is. Unless somebody's really helping you too, people don't typically maximize their potential in life, and that's from my perspective. I have always strived to do that with people that I meet, to maximize their potential. So, be sincere, but also understand that you probably have greater potential than you're currently demonstrating to yourself, and don't worry about others, right? And I guess the last thing I'd say on that is never forget the golden rule: treat others like you like to be treated.
Absolutely,
love that.
Great advice. Do you have a question, or do you need more time?
No, I got one. Guest? I got one for Steve. And it's a good one. It's a good one. It's a tough one, and it's a perfect one for Chick. So if God wins, so this is from General Flynn, right? If God wins, explain what he expects us to do.
Ooh,
Great question.
That is a fantastic question.
A deep question that will be answered tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern. As of course, we are going to be live here from this studio, God willing, as long as we can. We're going to be live Tuesday, tomorrow, Wednesday, hopefully here still as well, 6 p.m. If we're still around, we got sandbags and we got battery backup, so and we got Starlink. So we might be a little underwater, but we'll have our floaties on, and Atlas will have them on too, and we will be live regardless here, reporting from Florida. General Flynn, this was awesome. This was incredible. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate everything you brought to the conversation here and the insight from all of your experiences within the belly of the beast. Where can people find out more information about you? Where can people support your work?
They can go to flynnmovie.com. Atlas, you're awesome. They can go to flynnmovie.com, or they can go to generalflynn.com, and you can get all the articles that I've written, and you can see the books I've written 7 books. Generalflynn.com or flynnmovie.com, and I really want people to watch the movie. And the cheapest way to do it is you can go to Amazon or I think YouTube, and I think it's $3.99, to stream it. So watch the movie. You'll be blown away by what you'll learn. And even people that said that they watched me, they paid attention to the whole thing, you're going to be blown away by what you learn.
Yeah. Bobby, anything you want to say to the audience before we get out of here?
Yeah, just if you haven't watched the film, please watch it. It's well worth it to see it.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Martha
Bobby.
Bueno, thank you so much for joining us as well.
And Epstein didn't kill himself.
No,
he did not.
No. Yeah, that's one of the shirts we launched on the Best Political Shirts after we did our invasion of Epstein Island.
I watched that.
It's good. Awesome.
It was great.
Thank you. Martha?
You can find me at Bueno for Miami, and definitely go check out the movie. I will be doing that hopefully tonight.
Awesome. Steph?
This is Steph. We are change pushing the buttons. You can find me on X at StephWRC. Thank you for tuning in.
Atlas always likes to end the broadcast by barking. I don't know why she now instinctively does.
Because she knows I'm going to take this beef out of here. I'm taking Angus Peri out of here from Anton's land of Biltong. Man, awesome.
Landofbiltong.com. Atlas, speak. Good job. We always appreciate Atlas. She's the mascot here. Here's the trailer for the Flynn movie right now. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on thebestpoliticalshow.com.
Considered highly skilled when it comes to intelligence gathering.
33 years in the U.S. Army.
Flynn knew exactly how the system worked. He knew exactly what the intel world had been up to. He understood its funding. They had to get rid of Flynn.
The president's former national security advisor, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, pleading guilty today to lying to the FBI.
There was a moment where I just felt like I was drowning.
ISIS as the JV team. Do you feel as though your warnings were ignored?
We all knew that he was one of the most respected generals in the military, plain and simple.
Well, in 2012, he was appointed director of Defense Intelligence Agency. He ordered the first audit of the use of DIA's use of contractors. This set off alarm bells.
So I'm in there with these other political appointees. They're all supposed to go in there and tell what they believe to be the truth. What they did was they took my assessment and they wanted me to change it. And I was like, I'm not changing it.
Mike Flynn, whatever you think of him or his politics, did not lie, but instead told the truth. And so he was, by definition, the most dangerous possible person for Donald Trump to hire.
President Obama said, but I do have one specific recommendation. Stay away from Michael Flynn. He's bad news.
I went into the service because I love our country. And I come home and I find out that the worst enemy that I'm going to face in my life is right here in America.
Even had he not served his country, even if he were not a combat veteran, to turn something like this loose on a family, I mean, it's monstrous.
The media was out there in droves.
I went into a very deep depression, like suicidal depression.
only thing that kept me alive was my son.
We always knew that we somehow had to get through it because we knew he wasn't guilty.
Over time, instead of being pounded down below the surface of the ocean, we started to fight. I'm now above the surface. But I can see the shoreline. And I started to swim.